It's November here in Ohio, which means chilly weather and, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of delicious hearty soups. What I've got in store for you today is a copycat recipe from the Olive Garden that many of you may be familiar with if you live in the United States anyway. I don't think the Olive Garden exists anywhere but here. Anyway, this is a sort of Italian-style soup made with kale and crumbled Italian sausage. And in the Olive Garden recipe, they use potatoes, but in mine, I replace it with cauliflower, which is actually so delicious in this recipe, you probably won't believe it's cauliflower. And I'll bet that if you served it to people who knew the Olive Garden dish, they probably wouldn't even notice that there are no potatoes in it. It's just that good. It's also extremely easy and relatively cheap to make, I think you'll find. One of the things you're going to like most about this recipe are the macros for it. Check this out. Now, it's a soup, so of course it makes a lot of portions, in this case 8. The entire recipe comes down to 3,190.7 calories, 44.8 grams of net carbs, 185.6 grams of protein, and 349 grams of fat. Really pretty good. A nice amount of fat, not too much protein, and fairly low in calories, which is more apparent when we talk about portions here. Now, as I mentioned, I get 8 very generous portions out of this. You might get 10, you might get 12, and I don't know, one thing you know about making soup, if you've done this before, is the quantities of ingredients aren't necessarily terribly precise. That's not terribly important. A little more stock, a little more kale, a little less sausage is really not going to hurt anything. You're going to end up with pretty much a lot of food when you make a soup recipe like this one. Per portion of 1/8 of this recipe comes down to 398.8 calories, so just under 400 calories, 5.6 grams of net carbs, 23.2 grams of protein, and 43.6 grams of fat, which I think is a really good amount for a meal-sized main course like this. So, are you about ready for some hearty soup this fall? Let's go into the kitchen and I'll show you. Here in this soup pot, I've got 2 tablespoons of olive oil that I'm letting heat up, and it looks like it's about there. And next we're going to add in about 3/4 of a cup or so of diced onion. We're going to saute these quickly and give it about 3 to 5 minutes. And when the onions have become translucent and are softened, here they're just starting to brown a little bit, we're going to add in 4 cloves of chopped garlic. Give it a stir. And then next we're going to add in the kale. Now, some of you out there may not be familiar with kale. This is what one leaf looks like. You'll notice it's got a big, tough, fibrous stem that turns into a vein that runs up through the middle of the leaf. We're going to remove that because it's tough. It doesn't cook up very well. It's a bit unpleasant in the dish. So we're just going to remove all of the leafy part, just like this. And we're going to throw this part away. Next, I'm going to cut this into a fairly fine julienne. We don't want pieces that are too big because we want them to fit on our spoon nicely so we can eat them politely without slurping. There we go. And in with the rest it goes. Here I've got about 2.5 to 3 cups of chopped kale. This is going to reduce quickly in volume, as you'll see. Here we're going to add in 1/2 teaspoon of salt and about the same amount of pepper as well. I always use freshly ground. Give that a stir. Once the kale has wilted, we're going to add in a quart, that's 4 cups or a liter, of chicken stock. I'm also going to add in 1/2 head, that's about 12 to 16 ounces of sliced cauliflower. You could also use a bag of frozen cauliflower if you like, a 12-ounce bag or so. What we're going to do here is bring this to a boil and then let it simmer for 30 minutes. But before we do, I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon of dried Italian herbs and 1 teaspoon or so of crushed red pepper flakes. Give it a stir and put the lid on so it doesn't take all day. Here, as you can see, and this isn't really a problem, my cauliflower isn't completely covered by the stock. I can leave it like that, or I can actually add a little bit more. Here I've got 2 more cups of chicken broth. I'm just going to go ahead and add that in. And it'll just take a second to come back up to heat. 30 minutes later, add 8 ounces, that's 224 grams, of crumbled browned Italian sausage. And 4 ounces of grated Parmesan cheese. I'm using Parmigiano Reggiano here. I'm also going to add in a cup, that's 250 milliliters of heavy whipping cream. Give that a good stir and let it simmer for 10 more minutes. Ladle yourself up a generous serving like this one. This makes at least 8 generous portions. And then you can garnish it with some lovely bacon bits and some nice parsley. Now, doesn't that make you hungry? So good. Hey, listen, before you go, don't forget to like, share, comment, and especially subscribe to my channel. It helps my channel grow and it helps you find my videos, especially if you click on that notifications bell. Thanks so much for joining us here today at Tin Talk Cooking, huh? We'll catch you next time.